Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come? And thank you to all of you cuties that signed up for Patreon this week because of delateness. I'm sure you were pleasantly surprised to see that there are not one, not two, but 3 episodes there for your viewing, listening pleasure before they are released. So go check that out if you haven't already. Patreon.com/howcome. I am so excited to get this episode started. We do not have a traditional congratulations this week either. Initially, it was going to be our team member Rachel, and it was going to be a congratulation because she just graduated from school this week. Like a lot of our listeners, congratulations to you guys. If you want to listen to that episode, go to Patreon. It's up already. However, Egypt gets our congratulations this week because they brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine. So congrats, Egypt. We hope it holds. Speaking of the Middle East, this week's guests, I am so excited to have on this podcast. They are your favorite Jewish Palestinian lesbian couple, or the only one you know, Jess Salomon and Eman El Husseini. I love them so much. This conversation is so great. If you feel very, very strongly about anything, it might be an emotional roller coaster for you. If you don't know enough of the facts and you want another podcast that does the history and more facts, Ariel Elias, who you guys know and love, she recommended this episode to me of Pod Save America. It's called Dr. Fauci Unmasked, but the whole first 41 minutes is about Israel-Palestine. It's really like secretly buried in there. But yeah, it's Pod Save America, and the episode title is Dr. Fauci Unmasked. I think that one might articulate my feelings even better than this episode, but this episode's mostly about Jess and Eman and their perspectives, and I think you're going to enjoy it. If you don't, my DMs are open for respectful conversation. I had so many good, respectful conversations with people this week. It is like really heartening. Like, I know that there's a lot of hate and bad shit out there, but it's conversations like this one and some of the ones I had in my DMs with full strangers this week that actually give me a lot of confidence and make me really happy. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you don't, let me know. But I don't know, say something nice first just so I don't cry. Just kidding. It's not your responsibility. Anyway, here goes the episode. It's going to be great, I think. Thanks to Dipsea for supporting How Come. Dipsea is an audio app full of short, sexy stories. If you're looking to heat things up, there is a story waiting for you. Get an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/howcome. And I'm so looking forward to cooking with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. And they are offering you 12 free meals, including free shipping, when you go to hellofresh.com/howcome12 and use code HowCome12.
How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna just...
And FYI, we recorded this right before the ceasefire, so we don't talk about that. So it might be a little dated at this point, but it's good. I think it's good. Welcome, Jess and Eman, the El Solomons, you guys.
Thank you.
You guys have one of my favorite relationships to watch on the internet. Some of my favorite tweets this week. How did this relationship start? How did you two meet?
Was in Montreal at a comedy club where I worked. I was bartending and doing comedy there. And all of a sudden, this former war crimes lawyer shows up and says she wants to be a comedian. And I thought, here's a Mossad agent coming to sabotage my career straight from Israel. Now that I started doing weekend spots, I'm 2 years into comedy. I'm finally getting paid. Israel was notified and they sent her.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people didn't understand why I would leave a career with the UN as a war crimes lawyer to do stand-up in Montreal. I had moved back from The Hague to Montreal, which is where I was from, and I got interested in doing comedy. There are 2 English comedy clubs in Montreal, and Eman was there. She was already a year and a half, 2 years in, and she was suspicious, I guess, because who does what, who makes that kind of career change?
Yeah. I kind of get it. It's like you're witnessing some of the worst stuff ever.
Yeah.
Right? Like on a daily basis, it's got to be pretty horrifying. So like you have to, like you want to laugh.
Right. I mean, basically, in terms of the career transition, what kind of propelled me into it on one end was that, like many people, saw my workplace as a sitcom And originally I wanted to write a sitcom that takes place in a war crimes tribunal. I love dark comedy. And, you know, because it was a serious place, there's a lot of gallows humor.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure surgeons, you know, make a lot of jokes that are not, you know, and so especially the people I was friends with over there, we laughed a lot.
They're the funniest people. So her UN friends are my favorite. They're the funniest people I've ever met. Very just international and political and just so hilarious in their perspective on everything because they're almost desensitized by all of the horrific things that happen. It's just, they're so funny. So I was just like, why would you leave I mean, they're way funnier than comedians.
Iman and my parents both wanted me to go back to law because for different reasons. Iman was like ready to be an assistant.
I'm like, I'll do anything. I'll get your coffee. I just wanted to listen to them. They're so fun and entertaining. I prefer them over comedians, like 1,000%.
One thing that they have in common with comedians is, you know, Remy, how comedians, we can make jokes amongst comedians that are completely fine. And sometimes you forget and you'll like make a similar joke at a dinner party with, you know, quote unquote civilians. Yeah. And everybody's horrified. There, it was like that kind of environment where you could joke like you would amongst comedians. And
because also you probably know the intention of all those people making the jokes because they work really hard every day to make sure that like good things are happening.
Right. And so, you know that it is a joke and that it is a way to release stress. And that it's just that there's a lot of funny things that happen. Like a classic story is the
prisoner, the war.
There's like just very big personalities. Like these, you know, the accused war criminals are they were, you know, heads of military, political leaders, and now they're suddenly in The Hague at a tribunal where they're trying to assert themselves and their power in a certain way and putting on a big show. And so they're just trying to obstruct the process as much as possible. And a common tactic was a hunger strike.
What?
They're just, you know, they know that it's kind of like over for them. And they're, all of it is being broadcast back home. So they're kind of like playing to their hometown audience. And one of them that was on a hunger strike, we got the medical report back and it just said that he needed to lose weight.
Oh my God.
It was like stuff like that all the time.
I could see that honestly in like a 30 Rock kind of like office comedy situation.
This is what she's working on.
Yeah.
No, fully, right? Because it's like there's the office scene and all the regular office stuff, dynamics, right? And then there's what happens in the courtroom, which would be like in 30 Rock, the show within the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Then what's being broadcast, how people are responding to that broadcast. Like there's so many layers. Oh my God, make a show.
And major personalities, big characters. Yeah.
And such high stakes. Like you're saying, these people that like did horrible things, like ruined countries and are like, I'm not eating this week. And the doctor's like, well, good.
That's what I was going to recommend for your well-being, actually.
So when you met each other, like, were you immediately aware of each other's backgrounds? Like, did you know she was Jewish and that she was Palestinian? Had you seen each other's sets or like you were just chatting?
Well, yeah, it's just like when you get on a comedy scene, and this was a very small one, we knew each other's backgrounds, but it was 2 years before anything romantic happened. I mean, we were just like, I was probably trying to be friends with her more, but then she was with me just because I was new on the scene. And there were like, you know, 2 other women besides you at the time until maybe 6 months after I started. And honestly, I think we both didn't really like each other's comedy that much.
That's true.
You didn't?
No.
She was like so quiet and it just took forever to get to a punchline. And but I liked you off stage.
Well, I liked you off stage too.
Yeah, we were acquaintances, but I never really wanted to be friends with comedians. I had like my group of friends. I wanted to keep it separate. Comedians annoy me. And so I was just not looking to make friendships. I just wanted to, you know, be good at comedy. But Jess was definitely a smart person. And I was interested in her UN background. And I guess we were drawn to each other, which this is what I noticed in general in the Montreal comedy scene, how Muslim and Jewish comedians would be like drawn to each other every single time and like one time specifically at the end of the night, after one of the shows, I was just like cleaning up, and I noticed in every corner it was a Muslim and a Jewish comic, just like in an intense conversation. And I was like, I have to do something about this, because we always talk about, the conflict and how we're different and this.
Yeah.
So then I produced this holiday show called Kosher Jokes for the Holidays, where it got, Muslim comedians, Jewish comedians on Christmas. Was it Christmas Eve?
No, it was like around
like
Christmas
December
time
23rd. Yeah.
To do a show together.
And we were nobodies, but I'm thinking huge. I got like a big theater that used to be a former church.
Fun.
Eman was very entrepreneurial and very much like had that producer instinct.
Well, I just noticed that people didn't care about comedy when it was just a regular show or paying $5.
Right. It has to have something behind it. It has to be like a West Bank love story show.
Right. Exactly. So I put this show together. Guess who didn't believe in it?
Jess.
This one sold out, 400-seater. I mean, we got media coverage. Everybody was so into it. It was such a good show.
To be fair, I don't have confidence in anything.
I mean, still till today. Yeah.
Yeah. Iman is much more confident that way, much more of a Leo. And so, yeah, it's true. I didn't invite anyone to that show because I thought it would be such an embarrassing situation to be in an empty theater, me like 6 months into comedy. And it was a huge success.
Unreal.
And then the show grew. I became a 3-city tour and it was getting a lot of press, obviously, because, we know about the conflict between the two communities, but we never talk about similarities and how, or any sort of unity.
But yeah, that's how we got to really know each other, was doing press for that show. That's where we got to spend time alone. Often we would get the media requests together, and then we went for lunch, and that's when Eman
that's when I fell in love,
heard what I had to say, because I don't have a loud voice, and we were always in a loud bar. And apparently she never heard me.
Well, I was always like, oh my God, she talks so much, but with a low voice, like she's going to come and talk my ear off. I'm not going to hear a word, So going out and just, talking about it. And I also loved that she was a very moderate person, and so was I. So we were able to talk about the conflict in the Middle East without getting so emotional and angry or any of that. So, and we really, the beginning of a relationship.
Remy, that's how you flirt. You know what I mean? You talk about
traumatizing, polarizing issues, and you see if you guys can hang.
That's my go-to, and that's what makes me come. No.
I've been noticing a lot this week that there are a lot of Muslim and Jewish people coming together to talk about what's going on in a way that I haven't seen it before. Obviously, there are the ways that are super polarizing and borderline offensive on both sides, but it is nice to be able to see people finding a commonality and that there's more to two sides. I think you guys probably, Jess, from like your UN background and everything, like look at it from a very multifaceted way.
It's been a progression for sure.
Has it?
You grow up with a certain like education, and I didn't go to a Jewish school, and I didn't, I wasn't like, there's a spectrum of like indoctrination, I think. And I, let's say, was sort of like not super, I grew up, like I had some Jewish education for sure, but I grew up with certain talking points about the conflict. And then, eventually I went to law school and worked in international law, and I sort of looked at it from an international law perspective of like, what are the, potential crimes being committed here. But it was really, a lot of my mind opening was in starting, 10 years ago, this relationship with Eman, where we started chatting about it. And there were certain things that I just had never considered. And one of the rules that we started, like when we actually, romantically got together, was that if one of us said something, it was like, well, where did you hear that? Was it at, like, was it
from your family?
Was it from your family?
Did you feel it from a news source?
Was it from
what
the dinner
news
table?
Source?
Yeah. And so we just had a rule where, you had to kind of look it up and show the other person. And And there was a lot of things that I just didn't know, and you know what, I think honestly, I really think part of the difference this time, aside from in general social media and how egregious Israel, like they've really just become so much more extreme that it kind of becomes more indefensible. And I think a lot of people saw how this kind of came to be. And it wasn't just like we started with rockets from Hamas or so, and this past summer, so many of us white people had our eyes open to the fact that we really didn't know that much about African-American history. I didn't know that, I honestly, I went down some rabbit holes. I was like, how did I not know that there was slavery in Canada? Like I had always kind of been like, well, we didn't, the Jews weren't involved in, and then I'm like reading about James McGill, McGill from McGill University, where I went to school, had enslaved people. And then one of them he got from a guy named Levi Solomon. And I was like,
fuck.
It's just like you start. So I think so many of us, with our sort of, rudimentary new anti-racism education, now as this happens, I can see that maybe we haven't been taught everything.
Right.
And maybe we need to question that. Like I had always said, Hamas doesn't want Israel to exist. And Eman was like, well, has Israel said that it believes in the right of
Palestine to exist?
And I was like, oh my God, I never, of course, I'm sure they have. And then I was like, Google, and I was like, oh, I can't find anything.
I had a moment in Birthright when we were talking about it, and I was just very confused. And I just remember being like, but how are they supposed to live really? Like if they're not part of any state, and all of their sections are broken up. Right. Like this, something seems a little fakakta to me. Right. Truly. And then I start doubting myself as a Jew, because I'm like, but now I think I've come to the place where I'm like, yeah, Israel deserves to exist, but Palestine also deserves to exist. And I think I don't think we can explain the entire thing for everybody. I
know people are going to be tuning into the podcast, and they're just like, and then there were the Oslo Accords. And then
well, that's what was so funny is a lot of people had messaged me being like, fucking say something. And I was like, I am taking my time to learn. I can't just fucking put things out. It's not as cut and dry as somebody getting shot in the street and me going, that's wrong. I eventually did post something that I was like, sorry, I haven't for a long time. And then somebody was like, dude, you talk about cum. Why do you have to talk about Israel Palestine? And I'm like, well, I don't know. At the end of the day, we're talking about the human experience, right?
Everyone deserves the right to cum.
They do. Yeah. And not in fear. It should
It's very hard to come when there's bombs.
When there's bombs being thrown at you. That is the goal of this podcast. So everyone can come in peace. That's what the aliens mean when they say we come in peace.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like that moment on Birthright, but then I just kind of put it away or whatever, because you can put a lot of things away, when it's just okay, this isn't my wheelhouse. Going back to America, also the guy I fell in love with on Birthright wasn't even Jewish. It was so crazy. Yeah, he lied to get on the trip. Crazy trip. Then when all of this news came out and I really started seeing what was going on with Sheikh Jarrah, I was freaking out. Started crying a few times, and I kept saying to Ben, if we are doing this, I am not okay with this. But then I noticed, I was like, wait, who is we? The Jewish people are not a monolith. I know that I have my own thoughts. I know Jess has been supporting Palestine. I know that just blindly following something is not something I've ever been taught as a Jewish person. That's my favorite thing about Judaism, is the ability to ask questions and learn. And that was a big moment of clarity for me, is that yeah, we're Jewish. I'm Jewish. I'm really, really proud. Does that mean I'm Israeli? No. Does that mean I don't support Israel's right to exist? Of course I do. But right now, Israel is being run by basically a Trump. And I tried to liken it to when Alabama made fucking abortion illegal. I hate the Alabama lawmakers. Does that mean I don't think there are women in Alabama who deserve abortions and deserve to be protected?
Totally.
There are a ton of Israelis who don't support their government right now, who don't support the settlements, and they deserve to be protected. There are a ton of Palestinian people who do not support Hamas. They deserve to be protected. You know, like, there's just so much more nuance in all of this than a lot of people understand, and that I didn't understand.
That's the thing. It's just criticizing Israel has become so forbidden in Jewish education. It's just like this unconditional support. It's entrenched in synagogues. You know, I've gone to synagogue with Jess so many times. I love her synagogue. It's great, but it's conservative. And it's like, they have to mention Israel. They have to mention this support. You go to a Jewish dinner table, somebody is supporting Israel. And there is a separation to be made. Like, I love Canada. You think we don't criticize Canadian politics? Why is it that Israel is so untouchable? And that's what it's become for so many years. Like, for me, it was so difficult at the beginning, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, saying you're Palestinian was a bad word. You know what I mean? I went on a radio station. It was probably to promote a show of like Jews and Muslims or whatever in Montreal. And I said, yeah, I'm the Palestinian portion of the show. And they're like, Palestinian, that's edgy. Like, I couldn't even talk.
Just saying that.
Just saying I'm Palestinian was like a thing.
Which is crazy, because
it's crazy.
Why is it such a, like, if I'm remembering things correctly, the UN was like, okay, Israel is now here, where Palestine was not recognized, but it was a place, right?
Right. Palestine was colonized by the British.
Okay.
And the Zionist movement has started, rightfully so, because anti-Semitism is a huge problem in the world, obviously, especially in the European world.
Yeah.
And Jews are rooted in the Middle East, like all religions are. Jewish Arabs lived all over, Morocco, Iraq, and, they got expelled when the creation of Israel happened.
The Jews were kicked out of the other countries when Israel
was created.
Wow.
So,
okay. Hi, me here, jumping in. I did not know that. Did you guys know that? And I also didn't really process it in the moment, I don't think, but that's crazy. So Jews were just kicked out of all places in Europe. Oh, there's Ray coming home. Woohoo. Do you hear the garage, or am I just narrating my life? But yeah, that is very upsetting to me. I also don't really understand how I didn't learn that about Jewish history, or if I did, that I blocked it out. But yeah. Okay, that sound actually means that Ray is here. So I gotta go make dinner soon. And if you're like, what? You? Dinner? Why? Okay, 1, because Ray and Jane, Ben's parents, have been housing me for a fucking year and I owe them. 2, because I just got a sick delivery from HelloFresh and I want to contribute and it looks really easy and fun and I can't wait to do it. So I'm making dinner tonight and it's going to be so great. Yeah. I'm so looking forward to cooking with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. They're offering you 12 free meal kits, including free shipping, when you go to HelloFresh.com/HowCome12 and use code HowCome12. HelloFresh offers more than 25 recipes featuring a range of flavors, cuisines, and ingredients, so you'll never get bored. You can try something new every week. Eating healthier has never been easier with low-cal, carb-smart, vegetarian, and pescatarian options every week. Ray is a pescatarian, so I checked off pescatarian on our little fill-out thing. I really wanted to make a nice meal for Ray and Jane, and I was like, what should I make? Well, I didn't really have to think about it, because HelloFresh cuts out stressful meal planning and grocery store trips, so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in about 30 minutes or less. So we'll see how quickly I make this bad boy. What's fun is you can easily change your delivery days or food preferences and skip a week whenever you need, like if you go out of town or something. Also, HelloFresh has already donated over 4 million meals to charity in 2020, and now they're stepping up food donations to local communities amid the food insecurity crisis and pandemic, which we love. I also have loved every step of my HelloFresh process. so far, and I haven't even cooked yet. I visited HelloFresh.com/menus. I selected pescatarian option, and I am so excited to make Southwest shrimp tacos tonight. I think it's going to be so great. And I can't believe I just like have all the ingredients already. It's like very easy to use. I'm very, very excited. And if you want to get involved. Start this cooking journey with me. Go to HelloFresh.com/howcome12 and use code HowCome12 for 12 free meals, including free shipping. How fun is that? And speaking of fun, I know that this is sandwiched between a very intense conversation. We've been having a lot of intense conversations with our friends and our families, and the internet's been really intense, and everybody needs an escape. But those can be very hard to come by right now. Enter Dipsea. Let yourself get lost in a world where good things happen and where your pleasure is the only priority. Dipsea is an audio app full of short, sexy stories designed to turn you on or get you relaxed. Listen to stories about hooking up with your hometown crush you never made a move on, a gender you haven't had sex with yet, or, whatever your fantasies are. Not giving anything away about me, but maybe. They release new content every week, so there's always more to explore, no matter who you're into or what turns you on. And again, if you need to wind down, Dipsea also has wellness sessions, sensual bedtime stories, and soundscapes to help you relax before you drift off. I love Dipsea. I've never had sex with a woman, and it's really nice to do their guided masturbations with female voices or listen to stories of girls hooking up. It just makes me feel like I'm involved in more sex than I'm actually having. I am having sex, no shade to Ben. I just, it's an exploring thing. And it's really fun to explore and then bring back some of the moves to my dude. Yeah, it's been fun. And also everybody else who's tried Dipsea has raved about it to me. It has unlocked some first comes for people. We love to hear it. I've had some dreams inspired by my Dipsea listenings, and they were good. I think I came in one of my dreams even. Anyway, you guys, for listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/howcome. That is 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/howcome. You are going to love it. Okay, now I know I just interrupted a very intense point. Oh, post-World War II, what happened to Jews in Europe? Okay, here we go.
The anti-Semitism that was happening in Europe, I'm not telling you everybody lived like so perfectly in the Arab world. Of course, there's discrimination.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a problem. There was no like exterminate the Jews like it was in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
So the Zionism was created because of anti-Semitism, which I understand. I understand that I love Jews. So I understand that Jews need a safe haven. I understand that they're rooted in the Middle East. But I don't feel like I have to sacrifice my identity for Jewish safety. I do believe that I have a right to exist just as much as Jews in Israel have the right to exist. That's my only thing. So
yeah, if somebody came to my house and was like, "This isn't your house anymore," I'd be like,
exactly. And it was
what? I mean, can at least I share it or something?
Yeah, and the way it happened was so immoral. And Zionist propaganda always talked about how the IDF is the most moral army in the world and everything happened so peacefully. And it was always the Arabs that, were barbaric and wanted to kill the Jews. But we tried so hard and it wasn't true. Like kicking out somebody from their house with no compensation to the point of not even acknowledging in certain cases their existence. I'm like, this is stuff that happens to me. Like before the pandemic started, I was in LA on stage. And again, I said I was Palestinian. And I could tell right away when I say I'm Palestinian, how the person reacts. I could tell what their political stance is. And this Israeli woman in the audience, like sold out show was like, what is that? What's Palestine? It doesn't exist. So what's that mentality, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, like, I'm used to it. This is the second time it happens to me. It happened to me in New York when we first moved here, where an Israeli guy jumped on stage and took the mic out of my hand.
No.
And I was like, why'd you guys have to take everything? You know, that's how I became
the
the Palestinian girl that just moved to New York, you know, that got heckled by the Israeli. So it's like this active denial of my existence while just harping on Hamas being a terrorist organization, which is true.
Right,
But at this point, I equate the Israeli government with Hamas. I really do.
I don't understand the thinking of people who are just like, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore.
That's it.
Yeah, it was totally fair for us to do that, or the UN to do that. Like, if the UN decided now that like Israel doesn't exist because of all those fucking infographics that put Israel in quotes, like that would really hurt too. It just doesn't compute to me how you can say one thing and not the other. I've seen that image of, and I don't know if it's even real because of like,
you never know. Yeah.
You never know. But of the Jews coming on a ship or whatever with the sign that was like, please don't ruin our hopes to the Palestinians or whatever. How does it go from that to like, okay, now we deserve everything that you have? Like, that is very extreme where it's like, you're already protected. You are given a space. Why is there the need to ask for more?
It's extremism that honestly was permitted by the Western world because Israel was able to because the Western world is allied with Israel. So they were able to do whatever they want. They had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted because of the Holocaust. So nobody ever punished Israel. They got all the military aid. They got, the US always vetoed anybody who tried to stand against what Israel was doing to the Palestinians. So they really had, open house to do whatever they wanted. So of course,
do you think the Western world views Israel as more white than other countries in that area?
Well, it's useful for the US strategically to have a foothold too in the Middle East. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a lot of things that I don't think anybody's thinking of either, is like who's like funding all the stuff on both sides.
Well, I mean, like, for example, Biden is, trying to pass this arms agreement just now it's like $735 million arms agreement to sell arms to Israel. I mean, just as all of this is happening, so that's why everybody's like right on top of it. But, the deal is that, us, like the American taxpayer, we fund that, right? Because it's like the government, and but Israel is obligated to buy weapons from American weapon manufacturers, and some of those weapons manufacturers are, contributors to, were contributors to Biden's campaign, et cetera. So, I mean, there's obviously all of that.
Yeah, like America's not great either. That's the other thing. It's like we're thinking of all these countries as like who's good, who's bad. It's like, dude, we suck a lot of the times. Like, think about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of obviously really bad things happening in many other countries. And one of the deflecting, talking points is like, well, what about what's happening to the Uyghur Muslims in China? And it's like, yeah, no, I do speak out about that. But, the difference is that with respect to Israel is that, this is being done in my name and specifically now that we live here with our tax dollars. So I do feel a different obligation to speak up also because people will say that I'm like a self-hating Jew or a traitor, or like anti-Semitic or whatever, but it doesn't really stick, like that's why Bernie in general, probably even if he wasn't Jewish, would be speaking up the way that he is, but he can speak up, I believe, in a way that, is harder for Elizabeth Warren or AOC or Rashida, and so I think, it's important for Jewish people to speak up and say not in my name. And although we're not a monolith, although we're not Israel, I have no connection to that country. I've never lived there. I don't have family there, anything. I didn't go Israel and the government and all of the, big Jewish organizations, they try, they explicitly make you feel like, it's your responsibility to,
if you don't uphold
yeah,
it.
to support. And I go to my synagogue, like Eman mentioned, for the high holidays. And for me, it's an experience, not so much about religion, but I love the choir. I love being in that space. And I do it, only a couple of times a year. And it connects me, it's not so much for me about my relationship with God as much as to my own family's history of sitting in those same spots over
which you're so proud of. That's the most important thing to remember, is that you're so proud of being Jewish. It's not like you're not,
Of course. And so, but I always hope when I go that I won't have to hear anything about modern day Israel, know? I mean, of course, Israel in the prayers and whatever, it's all part of the service, but not in the sermon and I'm not there for that. I'm not there for politics. I'm there to hear something enlightening, to hear something in the Torah explained and interpreted by the rabbi in a way that, connects to daily life and gives me something to think about. And, but I do, feel like, and this is more recent, but the Israeli government and major Jewish organizations have recently adopted a definition of anti-Semitism that includes criticism of Israel within that definition, saying that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. And so, they're confusing the issue. And then they turn around and say like, oh, like you're talking negatively about Israel. Have you seen, you're contributing to the anti-Semitism, that's happening. And it's like, no, the anti-Semitism is a problem. And it is, this whole situation right now is causing more anti-Semitism. And there's a lot of, there are people that are truly anti-Semitic and disguise it as anti-Zionism. There is a lot of danger going on everywhere. But a rise in anti-Semitism isn't a reason not to speak out about ethnic cleansing.
And stop calling Arabs anti-Semitic because we're Semitic
because they're Semitic too. Yeah, no, but also I think that it adds to anti-Semitism when Jews aren't calling out things that are wrong. Like it's a worse look for us. Like when I do see people,
it is a bad look, Remy.
It's a bad fucking look not to be sensitive to somebody else's plight. Like when I saw some of these posts that were like, I respect Israel's right to defend itself or whatever. And I was like, well, yeah, but you can't ignore what's actually happening. And because you're doing that, that's making me hate you. Like, of course, I support Israel's right to defend itself, especially if it's a target. Thank God for the Iron Dome, shooting down the missiles that are launched at them. If it didn't exist, they would be decimated. So yes, I support defending itself, but do I think defending itself includes new settlements, kicking people out of their homes, doing unspeakable? No, that's not defense at that point anymore. That's offense. So when people are just posting these things, I support Israel's right to defend itself, and defense includes active violence against someone else. It's like, I don't know. Like I was starting to hate individual people because they weren't seeing the full scope of the situation. And I understand how, hopefully people wouldn't let themselves get to this point. But if those are the only people that you're seeing on your feed, and that's your representation of Jews, that they can't take any criticism, they can't take any blame, they can't take any ownership when something is going on in their name, then yeah, I would be mad at that too. But I feel really lucky that like you're on my timeline, that I've had other liberal Jews to reach out to in this time. Like Ariel Elias, Ariel, like she's one of those like best people in the entire world, also Jewish. And I slid into her DMs one day being like, okay, you seem to be on the same page with me for other social issues. Like, how are you feeling? And like, we really broke it down together, and we're like, oh no, this is a very okay thing to feel as a Jewish person who cares about other people.
Can I just take a moment and say that this is the hottest conversation between two Jewish women talking about the plight of Palestine? And I have a Jewish fetish. This is
Don't
hot.
fetishize
This
us.
is hot.
No, Iman is obsessed with like every Hasidic woman movie on Netflix.
There's something sexy.
You should see her cute.
Forbidden love. It's nice.
It's all
I
like
know.
Shitzel or whatever, Steisel, whatever.
I love Steisel. Oh my God.
Is her name Scheisel?
No,
That's
okay.
I don't know what the show is.
Shitzel?
It's called
Shitzel?
Shitzel.
It's very
I
hot.
mean, Unorthodox was another
The
one.
widow, the Orthodox widow on that show. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness.
Obsessed. A wig and a long jean skirt.
Yeah,
She's
it's,
in
Ooh.
a shopping cart.
You should have seen me on
Disobedience, forget it.
Birthright. I was on an Orthodox trip. I wore a long skirt to temple twice.
Remy,
Ooh.
she will.
It's getting
ask
hot
you-
in here.
She's gonna ask you to send her some pics.
Yeah.
From back in the day.
I was going to ask about this issue later, but on my trip, I was like, Rabbi, how do we feel about LGBT issues or whatever? And Orthodox Rabbi was not good about it. He was kind of like, it's fine, but like, ugh.
That's like such a Jewish response. Though.
Yeah, it's like, ugh.
Ugh.
When I looked into all of these issues this week, I saw a lot of people being like, well, why would we fight for Palestine when it's not even legal to be gay there? What would you guys say to that as a gay couple?
Well,
one of whom
Remy,
is
this is a
Palestinian?
comment we get constantly, and
Go to Gaza.
I've gotten it from trolls, and most disappointingly from a couple of people that I even know that are just like freaking out, and then they don't know what to say anymore, and they're like variations of like, well, why don't you and your wife go to Gaza? It'll be a one-way trip, ha ha ha, because you'll get killed. And it's like, oh, LOL. Yeah, I guess, I guess since Hamas is homophobic, then absolutely children should be bombed. Yeah, no, you totally convinced me. But, one of, someone who's a friend of mine that said something along these lines to me, which, we've gotten it so much from so many trolls, but that it was somebody that I know, I just said, like, it's not, well, first of all, this is the concept of pink washing, which, have you heard that term before, Remy?
I haven't.
Okay, well, pink washing is what Israel does. It's called pink washing. It's where they say, where they use gay people and their,
Tel Aviv
tolerance of LGBTQ people as an argument for the occupation.
For war crimes.
Yeah, where they say, well, I mean, look at us. We're so tolerant, so liberal with LGBTQ people. Like, we're great. And look at the other side. They're homophobic, backward barbarians or whatever. And it's without, I mean, all of it is tied. Like, there's no, people, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, but like, there's no queer liberation without Palestinian liberation. Like, it's all of these movements for self-determination are all tied together, and furthermore, Jews and Muslims can't marry. So in Israel, so it's like, oh, that's nice that you guys allow a civil union, but we can't be together because
the tolerance is a la carte.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, it's like being, like in the night, was it the 1950s in the U.S. that black and white people couldn't intermarry? I mean, like, that's the kind of backwardness that exists in Israel. So it's like, don't come at me with your LGBTQ. We have a pride parade in Tel Aviv when there's you don't even allow intermarriage. Because I said this to my friend, she was like, because she was saying to me, well, I don't think you're considering the other side, blah, 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 blah. And I was looking at my posts, and eventually I saw her in my stories, and eventually she just freaked out and wrote me. And I'm like, what other side? Like, all the things that you're saying to me are all talking points that I used to say. I know that side. What I'm saying to you is that I have now learned more And that's what I'm expressing. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, we couldn't even be married. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like,
yeah,
like, look things up, before you start coming at me with this. And, aside from the fact that it's just not a good argument, you're also ignorant about truly what
The
it would
rules
be
are,
like for us to
yeah.
be in Israel.
right.
And because, I actually don't understand how a Jewish state or a Christian state or an Islamic state could be truly democratic. Like, I don't get that, because there's no civil marriage. So, it's only, Jews can marry Jews. And aside from the fact that when we talk about what's even considered Jewish in Israel, the head rabbi or whatever that determines it doesn't even consider my conservative/Orthodox synagogue in Montreal, where the men and women don't even sit together. There's no gay, lesbian rabbi, situation as there are in other places. Thankfully, we have in Judaism a lot of reform movements and a lot of openness in general. I think
less
of all the religions,
rabbis.
we have, I think I will say, as a religion, we're the most
Jews and
tolerant
sexuality, and that's probably why I'm attracted to you guys.
Way ahead on that in general as a religion is concerned.
Totally.
But yeah, no, they don't. They don't consider even my rabbi and my synagogue officially Jewish by Israeli standards, because they have a very extreme Orthodox view on what even qualifies as Jewish. So they're so behind on all of that stuff that it's irrelevant to me that you have a civil union for gay people if they're both Jewish.
I'm sure there are also Palestinian gay people.
No, of course. And homophobia is a huge problem in the Muslim world. It's something, like my parents didn't come to our wedding. I called them ISIS.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we have a problem. We've been set, and it's something that I've criticized all my life, because growing up in the Middle East, you notice, as soon as you could absorb information, there's so much sexism. It's blatant too. Like the Arabs are unapologetic about it. Men are better than what, they don't, sexism, racism, homophobia. So it's something I've been fighting, especially because Muslims once upon a time had a golden age and we're so far away from it. And it's partly to blame the Western world for bombing the shit out of us and setting us back to the Stone Age, and these people cannot get an education. I mean, Palestinians try to build schools that get demolished all the time. And we don't see all of that destruction that happens. These people are not able to get an education so they could finally evolve. I feel the same way about the US, just spending so much money on arms and guns and wars and prisons. It's so much money that could go to education.
But they'd rather use the money for the weapons to make them more money. I think the West is using people and is keeping people, like you said, in the Stone Age so that they don't have the means to communicate or grow or have full lives or whatever. They're literally this thing has been going on for years, and I think it's because there's money in
so
it.
There's money.
There's no business in peace.
No. Exactly.
And I feel like the situation that's been going on over there has been so othered by us for such a long time because nobody wants us to understand. They kept saying things I don't, from whoever was teaching you, it's too complicated to understand.
I hate
don't
that.
Get involved. It's
that.
too complicated or whatever.
Yeah.
It is complicated, but it makes it seem like these are people that they're out to lunch. This is all fucking religious. And it's no, it seems a lot more political than religious for most of the people.
I don't think it's about religion.
I don't think so either.
Specifically coincided.
Land, it's about colonialism, and it's about actually, I mean, a lot of people say, it's settler colonialism, and that is true. But something that's different about this situation is that the two states, the partition was created by the UN. The Palestinians were not involved. It was poorly done. It was
they were asked, and they said, no, you can't just take over a place and take half my house and not give me anything.
Right. There was no effort made to set this on any kind of peaceful course. But it's also that I do think there's a lot of, as opposed to, regular colonialism, because the Holocaust was sort of at the root, or, Genesis, not that Zionism existed before it, but, I think the Holocaust caused this kind of generational trauma, which is like an abuser cycle too, which is part of what's going on, because you have so many, and people respond two ways, where they either repeat the abuse and they're like, I don't care. This is never going to happen to us again. And it doesn't matter what we do or what it takes. We're going to be strong, and fuck it. I don't care about those other people. We're going to have a safe space. It's going to be the biggest, toughest, whatever military in the world, the richest, blah, blah, blah. And then there's other people who are like, what I learned from the Holocaust was that this could never happen again. Mm-hmm. And we have a responsibility as Jews to make sure that we don't perpetuate any ethnic cleansing or a genocide, and that we speak up whenever we see that happening anywhere in the world. And I think like those are the two groups, and the responses to that trauma.
Just like somebody who has grown up with abuse might go on to be the best parent in the entire world, because they're like, never again, that's not happening to somebody else. But then someone else might just continue that learned behavior.
Totally.
And like, I feel lucky that there are people who are not perpetuating that behavior. Like, it makes me really happy that there are people to ally with. I would love to know, Jess, what your definition of Zionism is.
For me, it's I think it's the political movement that believes that Jews belong and have a right to return
specifically
to this
Israel.
Land. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As it is written in
I always felt like I removed it from Israel, the place, and was like, oh, Jews deserve a place to be safe. After the Holocaust, I thought that's what the goal was, or whatever. Why they put it in Palestine, I will never understand, if not to just spark more conflict and sell weapons. I don't understand why didn't the U.S. take us in? Why isn't Israel in Wyoming? You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna Florida, New York.
Yeah, like, or New York. Yeah, I guess it's
both of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
the truth is there is Jewish history. There is Jewish roots in Palestine, but just as much, those religious roots exist in that part of the world. So Jews do definitely have a connection to that place. There's a lot of, sacred religious places. So I understand from a religious point of view, but I also understand it from a military sell arms, have a business, have somebody in the Middle East as an ally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also, there was an overlap between Zionism and, the Nazis and fascists who wanted the Jews gone and out of Europe. So
right. Oh, so it was like, here's a little solution, put all of them on an island.
Or
not an island.
Zionists wanting to create a Jewish homeland where, Palestine is what became Israel, where Israel is now. It was very conveniently also lines up with
getting Jews out
the
of
goals
Europe.
of the Holocaust, which was we don't want Jews here.
Which, how horrible is that?
I mean,
right. And I know the U.S. actually did send Jews away as well. And so I do understand why they wouldn't put Israel in Wyoming. It was othering still. It was like, yeah, we'll take care of you, but not really.
Yeah.
Go there. Here, take that land. It's not a good genocide. It's not a story where that's going to lead to, years of peace. I mean, you can see how from day one, this was a very bad.
Yeah.
The Western world is like, just kill each other. We hate both.
Just kill each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then we're just going to tell our people that it's too complicated and that they should just go to brunch.
Yeah. Totally. It's a bad look, everybody.
It's a bad look, you guys. Like, it's not cute. You're being weird, frankly. Like, It's just
What was
awkward.
it? What is it that you say sometimes when Zionists or like Orthodox Jews do something, and you're like, what you say? There's an expression that you say, "You're not doing us any favors."
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Truly.
Yeah. It's bad for the Jews. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't like the moments when I'm like, oh, you fucking Jews, like that's so annoying. And I like, I don't know. I feel like you've been called a self-hating Jew. I feel like I genuinely had some self-hating Jew in me from like an early age. So I'm always very quick or like careful to like not tear my own people apart.
I mean, that's kind of one of the most Jewish things is to be a little
Is to hate
self-hating.
yourself.
I
Yeah.
think that's part of our
L'chaim.
culture.
Yeah.
Probably is. I mean, Israeli Jews are probably the only ones that don't have that kind of Jewish culture in them.
No, they're proud. How?
Yeah. Also,
What?
that's why they're like not good at comedy. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why they're not funny.
No, it's really crazy. They're so not funny. But
Do you know what? Oh, sorry. I was just going to tell you, there is a very cool stand-up story I heard about the Holocaust. I had a tour guide in Berlin who we went to Sachsenhausen, and he took me down into the kitchen of.
I don't know what Sachsenhausen is. Is it like
I'm taking you down somewhere?
No, I know.
I'm not liking this.
Sachsenhausen.
No, at first I heard Sachsenhausen. I'm like, is that like the German Sax?
No, it's like Auschwitz, but like light. Auschwitz light.
Low key.
Yeah. And so we're at this camp, and he took us down into the kitchen, and he told us this story about the one night that the Jews were able to be alone without any SS guards, or all of the prisoners actually, because it wasn't just Jews in the Holocaust. People need to remember. All the prisoners were in their like little kitchen while the SS guard were in like their cafeteria doing their Christmas thing. And because they were finally alone, a stand-up show came out of nowhere. And he knows this because he interviewed one of the survivors. And this guy, I don't know his name. Let's say it's David, because it probably was. He's on stage and he's telling these jokes, and the fucking crowd is going wild. Like, they need this laughter. The jokes are good, like it's everything is amazing. They're like ripping on the SS guards and whatever. Then this guard comes in to see like what's happening, like what's going on. And the guy on stage recounted to my tour guide, he was like, yeah, so in that moment, I had this feeling I can stop telling my jokes. If I do that, he's going to come on stage, see my jokes written out, probably kill me. I can keep telling my jokes, he'll kill me. Or I can tell different jokes. So he started telling these completely mundane, unfunny jokes, like why does the chicken cross the road, whatever. And as worse and worse as they get, the audience laughs louder and louder because they know what's going on. Like,
I actually have goosebumps.
Right?
I really have goosebumps. That's beautiful. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And the audience, they're laughing louder and louder. And the guard looks around and he's like, ugh, like they've got no sense of humor. He's like, these jokes are not funny. And he leaves, and this guy saves his life and the life of like, however many other people.
So nice.
Isn't that such a great story?
I love it.
It's such a good story. I did not know that story. And it just, it's crazy to think about performing comedy in those circumstances and thinking about somebody like Joe Rogan who thinks he's persecuted by cancel culture.
Right. In a 3-hour long speaking into the microphone saying that you're silencing me.
Yeah.
I
love that story. Are we going to tell
It's
everybody?
one of my favorites.
So good.
Yeah, tell everybody.
We will.
It's the best. But yeah, I think being open to criticism definitely makes you a more whole human being. And yeah.
I just got so into that story that I don't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about self-hatred and
self-hatred's good. And you're welcome.
I know we were on a topic and I forgot where we were going, where we were before. Yeah.
It's a good story. But I do want to get back to your guys' relationship. I know that your parents, Eman, didn't come to the wedding. Like, what were all of their reactions to dating each other? Are those relationships better now?
Our parents were lucky. We're both very lucky that our parents love us enough to pretend they're okay with this. So nobody has cut ties. My parents didn't disown me or honor kill me but for them, unfortunately, what people say matters, and the Muslim community is very important to them, and being okay with a gay relationship is just not part of it. So although they're very nice to us, and
do you think it was more they were against you guys being gay for the wedding or it being interfaith?
No, gay. I mean, I think
Gay,
my whole
okay.
entire family thought I was going to marry a Jewish person when we moved to Canada.
Okay.
I've always had I've
the
always
fetish.
had Jewish friends. I worked at a Jewish grocery store. Every time I begin a conversation with my family, like, guess what? And they're like, you're converting to Judaism. You know, like my love for Jews has always existed.
You know, when like a gay guy will talk about how he came out to his family and they're like, we knew you were gay.
Yeah.
The moment you put on, you know, my makeup or whatever, but like your parents had no idea about the gay, but they
the
definitely, they're like, from a young age, we knew.
They're like, oh, she's got a Jewish soul.
Yeah. I love, and I came from the Middle East and I love diversity. Like I refuse to have Arab friends practically, although I have some, but I just wanted to meet people from different cultures. And, you know, and I have a joke in my act where I say I'm against same race marriages. And so being with a Jewish person was not surprising for them, although my father would have resisted because my sister married a Haitian guy with a Virgin Mary tattoo on his sleeve. And like my dad asked him to convert.
No, it's a sleeve tattoo. On his skin. Yeah.
On his skin. A sleeve tattoo.
Yeah. No, I knew what you meant.
Yeah. A sleeve. And it was the most pathetic conversion because the guy is like Catholic, but for my dad, it's like, how is it going to look in front of people? They had a Muslim ceremony. He doesn't care about the details, which belittles Islam altogether, you know? Anyway.
It's more about the formality of like, even if it's
so
superficial, at least look, we can tell people he converted, even if it isn't meaningful.
It's
and he's
so
clearly
dumb.
Still not Muslim.
At all.
And your family, Jess?
Well, you know, my family is very, like my mom's very dramatic because she's Jewish and Latin American. So it's like, I don't know if you know any Latin Jews, but it's, you know, there's just no way, even if she wants to keep something inside, that she can. I had a girlfriend before, so it wasn't like, that wasn't new. So by process of elimination, the issue had to be that, you know, she was Palestinian. And it was kind of okay at the beginning because they never believed that Eman would come out of the closet. And we were together for a long time before Eman fully came out came out to our parents and came out in comedy. Like, so, you know, I started comedy 2 years. There was nothing between us. I was living with a girlfriend. We had no romantic feelings at all. Eman was straight. You know, for all I knew.
I thought it was straight. I know I look like extra dykey right now, but I thought it was straight for the longest time.
Yeah. And you know, all of her material, anyway. So, but all this to say that.
Wait, her material was straight too.
Well, yeah,
I was,
like she was just like a straight party girl.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so, so 2 years of nothing, then we hooked up. Then it was like a year of, you know, Eman breaking up with me every few minutes.
I felt so bad for my parents.
She couldn't handle
felt
like
bad
just
for
the
my parents.
idea of, is this going to be my life? I'm going to be gay. I like, you know, it would just identity wise, it was like well, for your parents, a guilt. Then in comedy, she was like 5 years in. So she was getting her first TV stuff, doing a lot of Arab gigs. Her act was totally not
I'm like,
gay.
I dropped out of college for this shit. I can't believe it. This is like, it just ruins everything, you know?
I can't make more reasons why people won't like me or book me.
Right, exactly. I already had woman. I already had brown woman. I had Muslim, you know, I had like literally comedy club owners telling me not to open with Arab or Muslim stuff, to not turn off the audience if I wanted to be booked on weekends, you know, like crazy shit like that.
This was like 12 years ago. Yeah. Then, and also Eman had never been in a relationship. So just the idea of like, committing to somebody, and she was so used to just being kind of her friends and like hook up with people, hook up with guys here and there and party, you know. So that first year was really hard.
So hard. I regret it. And she always uses it when we get into
I mean, I need something because Israel, you know.
And because Israel, but also as long as you regret it, like that's like the nicest.
You just need the acknowledgement.
I still feel so bad. Like I was so stupid.
But after that first year, then, you know, I gave her an ultimatum and I just said, I need you to start coming out to at least just your close friends, but not in comedy, you know, like your roommate. I mean, come on, we're like at your house, you know. So her roommate / best friend. So, or one of your best friends. Anyway, so she started coming out, and I knew that when she started coming out and being honest, at least with the first person, that she would see how much better it was, and that she would start to come out to more people.
Yeah.
And she came out to her parents before comedy, but it was still
before coming out as comedian.
No, before coming out in comedy as being
okay.
We were together for 4 years. After the first 2 years, that there was nothing. There was 4 years after that we were closeted in comedy.
Okay.
So, which was I didn't like, but in retrospect, I'm happy that I had like 6 years of comedy.
But you were
without
out
being
in
a
comedy.
couple. Yeah.
But closeted as a couple.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
nobody
there's so
knew
many
us
closets, you guys.
Right. So nobody knew us as a comedy couple, which
this is the Monsters Inc. of stories. There's so many closets, so many doors.
Where's our Pixar movie, you know? But yeah, so we came to New York, and then she felt kind of more free. To be in a
in New York, nobody knew me, so it was like it was fine to be like, yeah, I'm gay, and Jess is my girlfriend, and that's it, you know.
And then we got engaged here, and it was so, you know. So then Eman posted the engagement photo, and that on Facebook, and that's how people in comedy found out that we were together and that she was gay, and that like it was. I
like to go big all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like
why
that
not?
Post was major, you know, because
how many likes?
Oh my God.
But it was also
so
just
many.
like in our comedy world, like Toronto, Montreal.
Yeah. The Canadian community, forget it. Comedy community.
Nobody had any idea. Yeah. You know? Well, I mean, a few people later said that they maybe suspected, but you know, so basically all that to say that I was out to my parents about being with Eman, but they didn't think that she would ever come out to her family. So they were kind of okay with it, because they just thought it would go away. Because my mom was very much like, she would never disrespect her family the way that you disrespect yours, you know? Like, and she didn't say it like in those words, but that was like the
not everybody just walks out of the closet, Jessica.
That was it. Yeah. Not everyone just walks out like as if I don't really, I just kind of like live my life. I don't always think about consequences. I'm very much like all or nothing, you know. I'm like, no, I'm doing this. Anyway, so, but then when we moved to New York, before we got the green card and fully moved here, we came on like a trial period to make sure. And that was in 2014 when the last, I guess, biggest, there was, I think it's in 2018, there was another war, but there was a big, you know, war in Gaza, a big major bombardment, let's say, leveling of the open air prison. I don't even want to call it a conflict because people take issue with that.
I know. I feel like Eman said conflict a bunch of times in the beginning, and I was like, what is she doing?
I have to say that, otherwise people shut down and they don't listen to me anymore.
You're right. No, people are going to be like listening to this like, they are not making any decisions.
Throwing every term around. But that's when when she came out to her parents, and then we like, we're talking about moving here, and then then the politics heated up, and so that's when I started to have an issue with my family, and it was difficult for a while because in Iman's case with her family, they're super lovely. We hang out, like everything seems completely fine, but then they don't come to the wedding. Whereas on my side, it's like horrible for a long time until we just work through it. And then my mother throws us a huge party, you know.
It's so Jewish. It's like you hate and your family, you don't talk to them, but you show up.
And then it's like she organized the whole part. I mean, like our wedding was tiny because at that point nobody was on board and we wanted to get our green card. And so we just had this tiny city hall thing, you know. And then a year and a half later anyway, my dad also passed away after we got engaged, not because we don't think it's related, but he was kind of the coolest of the bunch. My parents are divorced, so it's like kind of separate anyway. And my dad was married to a Christian woman in North Carolina who like sung in her church choir. So like, I mean, he didn't really have a big leg to stand on. But all that to say that, yes, we worked through it. And eventually, and it's still like, I mean, it still can be awkward for sure.
Yeah. It's awkward, but she always includes me in everything, which is very sweet.
And we have a lot of things. Like my family is, I mean,
you guys, it's nonstop. It's nonstop.
It's nonstop.
The amount of weddings, bar mitzvahs, funerals, Jewish holidays, it's
Shivas.
Active. Shivas. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff that Eman's been there for, and she's so great with everyone. And some people are really cool with her. It's been interesting to see, you see things more through, I see people more through her eyes now. Cause I didn't know
you're
that
watching her experience.
I'm like, that random person won't even look her in the eye. Like,
fuck
them. You know what I mean? I didn't know that about, whereas other people are like really religious, but are like, let's get drunk at this wedding together. You know what I mean? And you see things through their eyes. So we've made progress, but
probably find out like who's like not like a better person, but like who's like more an open person.
Oh yeah,
through that experience. Cool. I know I've kept you so long. I do.
We need to talk about CUM.
Yeah, I was going to say. The conversation has been sexy up until this point, I guess. We're going to make
it really has.
Yeah. Iman has been coming all over the place the whole time. But we do have to bring it back to come always. Can we hear about your first time coming experiences?
So honestly, I don't remember. I come very easily. I come all the time,
see that
every single time. You know, I like it. I don't know if I did it to myself or somebody did it to me, or I just bumped into a wall. I don't know, but I am a comer. I come all the time, but I gotta say that
that's in her bio. It's writer, comedian, comer.
I'm lucky that way because I know some people have issues coming. I've never had an issue.
Well, that's the whole genesis of this podcast. I think is that Remy couldn't.
I couldn't.
Never until she started.
Never until now.
I had never until I started the podcast and had my first orgasm because of the podcast.
But until now, I want to know if she came.
No, she did.
February 22nd, 2018.
Okay.
Jess, do you remember your first orgasm?
Yes. I was little, and I didn't exactly know what it was, just that it felt good. I was at camp and we went on field trip with our camp to Old Orchard in Maine. And there was an arcade and I was on one of those motorcycle, things.
Yeah. Side to side.
Yeah. And it just happened.
That's what the Ariana Grande song is about. Side to side is.
Oh, really?
No, it's about riding dick.
I was like, I didn't realize so many people had this experience that it's in a pop song. But
did you? So it was in public.
I mean, I wasn't making a lot of noise. I mean,
but it was just happening.
Now I don't necessarily.
How
make
old
a lot
were
of
you
noise.
again?
I don't know. I was probably like 10 or 11 or something. But what's so funny is that, so years and years later, before Eman was out to her parents, but
I was going to say it came full circle.
But we were together and she was like wanting to move towards telling them, but she wanted to introduce me first as a friend to make sure that they liked me first.
Yeah.
There would be no chance if, it was just straight.
Well, they just would be like, we don't want to meet her.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the trip we took was to Old Orchard. And
we went to see the motorcycle. It was still there.
I didn't tell her all that. I didn't tell any. I just told her, I was like, oh my God, I haven't been here since I was at camp. And I actually had to tell you that this is where I had my first orgasm. And Old Orchard is kind of a place where I'm I noticed it hadn't changed in 1,000 years. And we were at the sort of boardwalk or whatever it is, the amusement park area. And I'm like, all right, let me see if I can find this arcade. I wonder if it's still there. And all of it was still there. So it was so random.
Where it began and where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to visit an old cum spot, you know?
I mean, I couldn't believe that I was going back there, and with her family, it was so weird. But yeah, and then I've always, I mean, this suction thing on the clit sounds so scary to me because
No, it's so
I
fun.
don't like even barely, I'm more like around the area. I don't even really, I can't even handle, I don't even like a vibrator. I'm like, I think it's just going to ruin me. I can't, I just like to do it myself, but like I'm
and I love that too. I love that too. I'm down for if people can do it themselves, go do it.
Yeah. But I did used to, and I do, I mean, I don't identify as bisexual, like necessarily all the time anymore. I do identify as bisexual, but I just don't get into it just because like with comedy, the first years of comedy, I would talk about being bisexual and I had all this material about that. But now, I mean, I'm so often talking about being in this lesbian marriage that it just is too much to like explain to the audience. But yeah, I did date men until my late 20s. And I did used to be able to have, if I was on top, I had internal orgasms. And that was something that, I was like sad to.
It's a very small percentage of people. You don't have to, I mean, like there's toys.
I mean, I know, but just like there's,
there is a pride that comes. Yeah.
I mean, let's say like the kind of bisexual I am is that I'm probably more attracted sexually to men. Like I wouldn't just I've only been with Eman and like a girlfriend for a long time, the first one, and then one other girl in between. But I never had the experience of like going to a gay bar, picking up a woman and like having a one night stand. Like I'm not that gay. Like I need to know the person. Like Iman, like we knew her for 2 years.
You have to have an emotional connection.
But I don't with men. I'd prefer,
but not with men.
Yeah, with men, it's just like I could just hook up with them,
Okay.
And exactly. And women, it's just that it's more easy for me to fall in love with a woman because I tend to need to know them. And like there is a much more emotional connection. Like I used to tell this, it's not necessarily a great joke, but I had my Betty Kettle story, or you're like,
perfect.
I already know.
Perfect.
So
no, that's a perfect
just like
analogy.
how I explained it when I was. So anyway, after the motorcycle, I tried to figure out how I didn't have a motorcycle arcade at home.
Yeah.
So I had to just like kind of, figure out like, well, what was it that I was doing? And so, it was like a rubbing thing onto. So I used to use, I had 2 teddy bears and one of them was called Cinnamon Buns and he was like a beige bear, and I would use his.
He was a babe.
Well, beige.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Super hot.
Super great buns.
Yeah. Cinnamon buns.
High and tight.
No, but I didn't use his buns. I used his snout.
Okay.
Like this part.
Okay.
And like, and then when I was done, I would just like kind of be disgusted by what I had done and by him, and I would just throw him on the ground. And then I would take my girl bear that was like white and pure like the snow, named Betty Kettles, and I would hold her the rest of the night.
Oh my God.
And like, to me, that's like, the definition of the kind of bisexual.
Eman, did you ever have like guilt feelings about masturbating or whatever, like from a religious?
No.
Okay.
No, because I grew up seeing so much hypocrisy, because I grew up in the Middle East and I saw so much hypocrisy and sexism and all of that stuff. I never felt guilt. I always felt that the guilt was always targeted on the women. Like men were allowed to do whatever they want, and it's just protecting women because we're like weak or whatever. So I really, I never felt guilt. I did feel guilt falling in love with Jess and having to come out to my parents. But when it came to sexuality, I was like embracing it. I was so,
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that for you.
You're really Jewish about it.
Yeah,
That's
very
why
Jewish
I come
about it.
all the time.
I mean, for me, I don't know if this plays into it at all, but I'm not like able to just like let myself go and have someone else just make me come. Like, you know, I think, you know, because Iman is, and in our personalities, I'm much more of a control person.
And I'm really not.
Yeah. And I always thought that has something to do with it.
That you don't like stuff being done to you necessarily as much?
I do, but
she'll direct
I
you.
need to be involved. Like I'm not just like,
yeah.
And
you're
I've never
a
been able
good
to
instruction taker?
Yeah, you must.
I'll do. Yeah. I mean, she's the boss in life and bed and everything.
But I'm just to say that, like, it would be great if I could just truly let go and not, you know, not have to feel like involved at all. And that's not just with Iman, that's with anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say she's very good, you know, but
you got to instruct. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you guys, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all these stories and your opinions and stuff. And I think it's so fucking cool to be able to grow up with a set of views or whatever that like you're told and then just like bust out and like lean into masturbating and allow yourself not to feel guilty for that and like allow yourself to have an amazing marriage with someone that like you never thought you were going to come out, and now like you guys are such a powerhouse couple. And no, seriously.
You're so out. Yeah.
You're so out.
We're too out. Jess and my parents want me back in the closet. That's where they agree.
It's too much PDA.
And even out in like comedy, like thinking that like, oh, people aren't going to book us if we're too Muslim or too gay or whatever. And it's like, no, like you are, when I think of a Jewish Palestinian gay couple, it is you guys. Like, it's just nice to see like the things that like you think aren't going to do well for you are the things that like make you really special.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's so nice.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Of course. This was the best.
So much fun. I can't believe we married these two topics together. Married. Anyway.
That was a different
That was an that deserves.
Yeah. Do you know what I noticed actually, speaking of Montrealers? I have a lot of Montrealer friends, and usually oi is said like annoyed, like oi or whatever, but my Montrealer friends say oi is like it's cute, like oi.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you online? Jess, let's start with you.
So my own individual social media is Jess_ Salomon, Salomon. And we have together a free special on YouTube.
So good.
It's from 2 years ago, but it is really fun. It's our duo act. It's a full hour. And so just go on YouTube and search the El Solomons marriage.
Solomons, not salmons.
Not salmons. LELSALOMONS, marriage of convenience. And yeah.
And that would be our Instagram handle for our cartoon account at the El Solomons.
Amazing.
So keep up with us there.
And Eman _ EL _ Husseini on Instagram, Imanifique on Twitter, imantertainment.com is my website. Esther El Husseini is my puppy on Instagram.
Aww.
Our puppy.
She has an Instagram.
She's really cute.
I love it. You guys are so fab. Thank you so much for being here. I do have to ask a question to both of you. I know I have to ask this after every experience that's sexual. This has been pretty sexual. Jess and Eman, did you finish?
I'm edging right now.
Awesome.
When it started, I finished.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
you for letting us come.
Thank you guys again. This was so fun. You guys, we'll see you next time on How Come. Bye.
Bye.
Yay.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I've still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause 'cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz